Hello, I am Jenya DeLima. Welcome to Writing and Editing, the author-focused podcast that takes a whole person approach to everything related to both writing and editing. Humor can be a tool in our writing that does more than make our readers smile or laugh. It can make vulnerable moments less intense, reveal something about a character, and it can even be used in memoir to help tell the truth. Author Matthew Check is here to explain how that's possible and how he used humor to explore honesty in his new book, What Would Philip Roth Do? Well, thank you so much for being here today, Matt.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, you have a background in music, and I'd like to have you start by saying how that influenced your writing, or even maybe any techniques that you used while you were writing.
Thank you so much. It's a great question. I get asked this question periodically about is playing music like writing? And I'll be honest, it's really not 100%. And I'll tell you why, for me personally. Playing music and writing songs, for example, is really the artistic side of my brain, and it's not the technical, cerebral side. I'll tell you that practicing an instrument is kind of like writing. Because in order to get something on the page and really refine it and fashion it, it's not this romantic version of oh, I'm so inspired, I'm going to write. You got to get your butt in the chair and you got to write day after day after day after day. And sometimes it's not fun and you just have to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, learning an instrument is kind of similar in that respect. I'm a bluegrass banjo player. And in the early years of learning the banjo, when I was 20, 21, 22, 23, I would sit for hours by myself practicing what's called the roll patterns. Because with the banjo, it's with three fingers. And when you play the bluegrass banjo, it's a combination of your thumb, your middle, and your index moving in certain patterns. You have to memorize the patterns. You have to memorize it with a metronome. So that doesn't happen by inspiration. It happens by sitting there and doing it for hours and hours and hours. And I write about that in the book a little bit about how,
Okay.
and I call it. I say in the beginning, learning to play the banjo was an exhausting despair. And when it finally clicked, it was kind of like spotting a unicorn. I'm kind of paraphrasing
Mm-hmm.
myself, but that's the best, connection I can make between being a musician and being a writer. It's really just having the ability to sit by yourself and work on something until it finally clicks. And that, is something that, it's a version of discipline, but it's got to be inspired
Yes.
because if there's no inspiration inside of it, you're really never going to actually get to that place, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
that's my experience at least. So,
Well, when it came to writing the book, did including humor come naturally to you?
so there's a couple of different types of humor in the book. There's a little bit of the
You already
slap.
beat me to one of my questions.
Okay. Well, actually, so do you want to drill down into what you mean by
Oh,
humor
no, no.
first, or
Yeah,
should I?
just go ahead. Yeah, what you would define as humor, or even the types of humor that you used, if that varied at all.
Right. So the book is it's called "What Would Philip Roth Do," and Philip Roth is a writer, one of my favorite writers. He died in 2018, and so the book is kind of this imagined conversation with him. The entire book. He'll have these asides where, in italics, I'm talking to him. I'm telling him my situation. And if you're listening, and if you know Philip Roth at all, he wrote about 30 books over the course of his entire career. He died in his 80s and he started writing in his 20s, and his early books are these very strange, for lack of a better term, psychosexual Jewish trauma stories. These days, it's kind of stereotypical for to have this Jewish male anxiety in the world and, worrying about anti-Semitism and being man enough in a world that's Anglo in a country that has this history of Jews not being included, right? That's kind of like how he kind of got started as a writer. And so I wouldn't say that he pioneered that humor because that type of humor really is part of the Jewish American experience. He was kind of the first generation that made it really available to people. And
Uh,
and he really went there, in a way that a lot of his other contemporaries didn't. Like Philip Roth really had this provocative edge, and he would go there with stuff in the bedroom and his mother and his father and money. And, there was really this provocative edge to it. And I was like, oh my God, you can't write that. You can't put that out there. And the most amazing part about it is he would find a way to do it with humor.
mhm.
He found a way to write these stories, and with him, it's fiction. Mine's a memoir. In fact, I wonder if a lot of his writing they called auto fiction
Oh,
'Cause-
yes. Yeah, which we think of as being a new term, but it really isn't. Yeah, it's
right?
just a new term that gets applied to something that's already existed, but maybe the marketing was different then, or we didn't have the same sort of classifications that we do now to further divide it.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah, what you said. And so when you read his early novels, you're like, "Oh my God, it just reads like he's telling you what happened to him." And you're just so there with him. Like his early, like his most famous book is Portnoy's Complaint, I think from 1969. But his 73 novel, My Life as a Man, which is still my favorite of his all of his novels, you just feel like you're right there with him, experiencing life. And he really wrote with this kind of self-deprecating manner, right? Which really it just attaches itself to the Jewish writing experience of Americans for whatever reason. And so I really identified with how he wrote about himself. And so I also, I'm not like Philip Roth in that I'm nothing like Philip Roth in the respect, like I'm not in the respect of like, I'm not going to compare myself to him. That's what I'm trying to say. I would
Right,
never, what I would say is that for myself, writing with a self-deprecating humor allows me to talk seriously and with sincerity about what happened in my life.
right.
I don't know exactly why that works 100% because sometimes humor it can mask how you feel about the world and
Right.
it
Yes.
can mask this fear of really talking about or processing what you've been through, right? So in that respect, humor can be a vehicle for getting to the most difficult and dark parts of your life's experience, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. It brings up something where maybe you don't have other wording to use with it, or it feels too dark and depressing or despairing or whatever to talk about it at all, unless you have that veneer of humor overlaid on top of it, where now you've made it manageable for yourself. And maybe that is the only way to process it or bring it up at all.
right. Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a really mundane example in the book, but my book is not mundane. Like I've had periodic lower back issues, and Philip Roth did too, by the way. Ding, ding, ding. But anyway, there's a scene in my book where I talk about throwing my back out at 27
Hmm.
and like what I had to do for like those couple of weeks that my back I couldn't walk, and I end up like going to this. I'm not going to spoil it. I hope if you're listening you'll read the book, but I talk about how what it took to get to the doctor and what the doctor was like and what the doctor would do for me, and I talk about like what I did at home, which was like really weird and depressing, but I really find a way. I think at least to write about it, which is like you can't not laugh at it. It's so ridiculous to throw your back out at 27 years old because you were putting on a sock and all of a sudden you can't walk.
Yes, yes.
Like it's kind of hilarious. It's pathetic.
Oh no, I think we've all had that where we've had to explain an injury or something, and the way that it happened just feels so dumb when we're trying to explain it that, right,
Yeah,
it's either you're going to share about it honestly with what happened and then laugh a little bit at it, or you just brush it off and say, "Oh no, it doesn't matter." So yes, that humor leading to honesty right there.
yeah,
Because yeah,
yeah.
what other approach do you have then?
I know. Yeah. So that's like a mundane example. I will tell you that my editor, she really gave me the courage to really go beyond with that humor where I never would have written by myself because a lot of when we were early on in writing the book, she really pushed me. Like there's a lot of sex in the book, a lot of like my early romantic sexual experiences because it's a book about my life. That's what happens in your 20s. You meet people, it's about that. And I was dancing around the scene where I lose my virginity. And she stopped me. She's like, Matt, I went through a couple of drafts of
Mhm.
this scene, and she had encouraged me to read a couple of writers that talk about these things so you can write about it with sincerity. And I just wouldn't go there. And she stopped me. She's like, Matt, as a woman too, it wasn't my editor is not a man, right? So it was kind of nice to actually work with a woman on this, to be honest, because there was a little bit of a different energy, right? It wasn't broy, so to speak. She's
Right.
like, you,
No
you know
high
what I
fives
mean?
at the end.
No, really, no, exactly. It was actually really nice to have a female editor for the years that I wrote the book. And she said, Matt, I just want to see you get laid. Just write the scene. Like, what did it feel like? What did it sound like? What were you thinking? Write the scene. It really was this leap of faith because I really didn't want to write something that was dirty or pornographic. When I read it now, years later, because I wrote this part of the book many years ago, I want to say like 2015, even. It's like 10
Mm,
years later.
okay, yeah, yeah.
I think it's hilarious because it's a younger version. It's even a younger version of me writing the book. I wrote the book
Oh,
in my
right, yes.
yeah, I wrote the book in my early 30s. So some of the early reviews say it's a little bit cringe, which I kind of think is funny. So I think that's great. I think it's great that people are cringing at the book. It means it's eliciting a reaction, right? I think if it wasn't written well, it would just be dismissed, so to
So
speak.
many of those early steps into adulthood, that when we look back, are cringe. Even just things like what we wore to our first job interview, or how we answered questions, or we look at some of those early relationships when we thought we were acting so mature and adult-like, and
Yeah,
really we weren't at all.
right. Yes, exactly. The difficult step initially with with being a writer, is to find a way to authentically document those moments as you remember them,
Yes.
and to really bring the reader in, like not push them away, not make them roll their eyes at you, or not take it seriously. Because I really think that if you find a way to write authentically and from the heart about what you're experiencing, it's kind of hard not to take it seriously, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yes.
That's kind of like where the secret sauce is, I think.
No, I think
So
humor helps too, because I think when you take yourself too seriously, it can be a little alienating to the reader who doesn't really know you and have that attachment to you, because it's that feeling almost of, who is this guy that I should be so invested in his life and be so concerned with whether or not this turned out for him. But yeah, I think we bond a little bit easier to people when we see those moments of levity, or the cringy admissions, like I did throw my back out by putting on a sock. It's not someone trying to gloss it over and make it look like this big serious moment all the time.
and that's also where I really identify with a lot of Philip Roth's writing, and I'll tell you why. Because like Philip Roth would really go there with those types of moments. Like you were there with him when these really ridiculous situations would happen. But he was also a very intellectual and beautiful writer. He would go from like these long, essaic, beautiful paragraphs to talking about like not being able to get it up.
Yeah.
It really just throws you for a loop when you're reading these things. You know what I mean? And I identify with the moments where he would go from the absurdity to the beauty and back and forth.
Yeah, but
And,
that's such a great way
yeah,
of employing humor, though, too. I mean, that's one style
yeah,
of humor, that jump into the absurd, the unexpected, where you are thrown for that loop, exactly like you said.
yeah. In that respect, the parts of humor in the book, at least to me, that was my attempt at an homage to him and how he wrote. Of course, the title is "What Would Philip Roth Do?" I feel like more that there was just this review about the book, and it said, there's not much about Philip Roth in the book. I thought it was a strange review because the style is an homage to him. Try
Yeah, it's a
my
little bit
my
more meta than probably what they were thinking.
Yeah, if anything, the book is this attempt to go between the absurd and the serious, back between the intellectual and the body,
Mhm.
right? I really credit my editor. She really found a way to help me find that voice.
What's some of the advice that she gave you that really helped you do that?
I guess I'll name her. Her name is Wendy Dale.
Mhm.
She teaches and coaches in memoir. She's really great. And, I've worked with her over so many years, and I wonder. I don't want to give away her style, but I'll say that informally and as a civilian, she's all about writing scenes and connecting them. And what's the through line, and how do you? Because a lot of times, like people like they think when you write a memoir, like you're writing a biography. A memoir is not a biography. And
No.
also when you're writing a memoir, people think, oh, you're writing from like age 5 until 90. It's not that either.
Mhm.
A memoir is a very focused, narrow perspective that you see yourself through. Your life story is told through it's topical, or there's subject matter. You have to have scenes that somehow are connected by that subject or that topic,
Mm.
right? And the scenes have to be connected with transition moments and things like that. And she really helped me see that and understand that, right? And I really was lucky because I worked with her on the book over so many years, where she would have to constantly redirect me in the early chapters. She's like, this chapter, it's not working yet. You got to connect it to X, right? Or this scene, it's funny, but it doesn't connect back to Y, right? And she would just help me kind of make sure the through line worked from beginning to
Yeah.
end.
I was going to ask
So
about that too. If there were any times during editing or revising where maybe your editor had said something like, exactly like that, this is humorous, people will laugh at it, but it doesn't really fit. And how you identified where those spots were and knew that they would be better off cutting them.
yeah, there were a lot of babies drowned. Yes, yeah, for lack of a better way of putting it. even in the very end, we the book really lived on my computer after it was written for many years. And then at the tail end of the final editing process, and we sat down to work on the book for one more year. I guess it was 2 years ago by this point, after the book had lived on my computer for, X amount of years. We cut about another 10,000 words.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, there was a lot taken out, a lot of stuff that I took a very long time to write. And they were totally cut and rewritten, just like a puzzle, like a Tetris a little bit. It really is not how I originally envisioned the book ending, but it really works.
Well, when you're using humor, what do you hope it conveys, or emotions do you hope it brings up in the reader beyond just that general amusement?
I really feel like when it's a bullseye, somebody reading your book, they identify with what you're going through.
Mm.
That's what I want. What I would really love, I don't expect all my readers. I'm speaking as if people are going to read the book. I hope they do.
That's
What?
the goal, yes.
Yeah, I really would wish. I would love the reader to be like, I see what he's doing.
Hmm.
I see how this is such an homage to this style, right? And if people don't see that because they're not Philip Roth enthusiasts, right? I really hope they can identify with the sincerity and the authentic experience of growing up. 'Cause it's a book about becoming an adult and screwing up and things not working out, and the pain and the shame and the guilt that goes into trying to find your place in the world.
Hmm.
Because my book's all about failure and things not working out. There's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel at the end of it, but it's all about my failed relationships in my 20s. It's about drinking too much. I'm sober now. All the things that happened to me because I drank too much. It's about being a musician, right? It's about like playing music for kids, which I hated when I was. Yeah, I ended up becoming a principal of a Hebrew school in Manhattan right out of graduate school. And one of the jobs there was I had to play like services on Saturday mornings for kids with my banjo.
Oh,
And
geez. Okay.
I could not stand it. I'm like, really? A graduate degree? And this is what I have to do with my time? Right. And here I am 20 years later and I still do it. It's what I do for a living. Like, it's funny, like what ends up like staying with you. And you know what? Like in my mid 40s doing it, I love the families. I love the kids. Like I'm a career musician. So it's funny to me. And I kind of see it in the version of like I'm doing service and it's one of my life's callings, right? But
Uh,
as a 27-year-old hungover in Manhattan, when I'd rather be asleep, I'm speaking very honestly right now,
right.
playing banjo for toddlers was like the last thing I really wanted to do with my time, right? But it
Yeah.
came with the job, so to speak. So there is a very little subset of American society that are male Jewish song leaders for synagogues, and I hope they're going to laugh hysterically at this scene because I think it's really funny.
Mhm.
Like, and that's really what happened to me, right?
Mhm. Yeah, you just think about those things when you're not feeling well, and what is the very last thing that you want to do? Yes.
Right,
Let's just go
right,
to the most chaotic, noisy, unpredictable environment possible, which is always a mass of children, and then throw in
right.
music. Yes.
And it really was a big part of my life. I'll also speak very honestly at the moment. The moment I knew I had to get sober, this is like, I kind of can't believe I'm saying this stuff out loud. This is not in the book. This is many years after the book. I had a really long night out on a date. The date didn't go very well. And I don't even remember how I woke up in the morning. And I
Oh,
had to, I had to go lead kid services at like 9 a.m. Right. And I'm like there playing, like, I don't know, like Wheels on the Bus. No idea how the night ended. And I'm like, I can't go on living like this. But that moment was also like absurdly comical. I'm like, how can I be playing music for children
yeah.
and be an alcoholic at the same time? Right.
Right,
But
right.
but everybody in every industry has that moment, whether you're a doctor or a construction worker, right? Or a teacher. Like everybody's got that moment where they're like, I can't live like this anymore. It just happened to be for me. I woke up hungover, had to go lead a toddler class. Like, go figure, right?
Hmm.
I bet you that I could find a way to write about that in a funny way and make people laugh. I
Oh,
bet you
I
that.
I don't doubt it. Are there
Anyway,
any moments you did share in the book that you think you wouldn't have been able to if you hadn't also used humor to bring them about?
that's a really good question. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I talk about getting an STI. Honestly, it's really graphic, and I read it now, and I can't believe this is once again my editor. She's like, "You got to show it.
Oh,
You can't talk around this. You got to talk about that. You just got to talk about it, right?" And I'm not going to spoil the story because I get this STI and I go to the doctor's office. It's really funny and has everything to do with the rest of the book.
mm.
And it's one of those things in life. It's also like it really is like one of those moments where like my life might have gone on the same path, but certain things about being a musician would not have happened if I had been to that doctor's office on that day.
Oh,
Actually, and
interesting.
yeah, it really is interesting, right?
Those are
And
not
important.
two things you think would be connected.
No, and it's a really. I'm not going to give it away. I hope if you're listening, you'll get the
Yes,
book.
that's right. Dangle that
You
fish
know,
hook.
but when I think about it out loud now, like if you're listening, you're like, I could never write about that, and I really thought back in 2014, 15, like I could never write about this. But it was such an important part of the book. And my editor, Wendy, really gave me the courage to write about it that I just went for it.
Well,
Right.
what do you hope that the reader will learn about you, the narrator, or you, the author, based on the book itself, but also the moments of levity that you've included?
I hope they will learn that all of us have dark and difficult moments in our life. And the challenging moments are the moments where you find a way to dust yourself off and get back up.
Hmm.
Right. And they don't stop coming, by the way.
Yeah.
I've got so many more memoirs in me, and all of it's happened since this one was like closed up. Like so much of my life after sobriety, even, because this book ends even before I get sober. I've had the best and the worst moments of my life after this book ended.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this wasn't even the beginning of the most trying moments of my personal, my financial life, and my career. All of the most difficult moments of my life happened in the years after this book, was finished. In a way, it's kind of like says to me, like, are you ready for more challenges, right?
Yeah.
So to speak. So if anything, I think that I hope that people can see that the character in the book is, resilient, and they might see a little bit of their story in that resilience, I guess. I guess that's the best way I can say it.
Well, to finish this by bringing it back to your music background, if you had a playlist to go with your book, what's one song that would have to be on it?
Oh my goodness. Well, guess what? I have a playlist for this album, for this
Perfect.
book.
You don't
Yeah.
have to think about it, just pull it up.
And if you go to my YouTube page, my Matthew Check, I have a YouTube page. There is a Philip Roth official playlist, and in between each song, which the songs mentioned in the book, they're in the playlist. There's
Oh,
about 20. There's about 25 songs on the playlist. Some of them are my own music.
mhm.
Some of them are just songs that like I talk about because of pop culture. And in between each song, I have a little voice track of me talking about why it's important to me and in the book.
Oh, nice.
There's also, if you listen to Pandora, it's an official mixtape on Pandora that'll be available, and that'll be on my YouTube page also. But to answer your question, let me think about a song that's really important in the story. I will give you one little spoiler.
Hmm.
I played banjo on the theme song for the television show Justified,
Mm.
which was on an FX, right? So I actually played
Bouncing television.
banjo. I was the original banjo player for Gangsta Grass, which was the band that recorded the theme song for that show. And so I actually you can hear my banjo on an Emmy nominated song. It's kind of funny.
Wow,
Um,
very cool.
and I talk about how I got picked to be on that song in at the tail end of the book.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like a weird, like that really happened thing in my life, and
Yeah.
it real so that song, it's like one of the last songs on the playlist. So
Oh,
uh,
very neat.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. Didn't expect me to say that, did you?
no, no, I was surprised. I'm very
Yeah.
happily surprised.
Okay.
Well,
Uh,
thank you again. Is there
yeah.
anything
Thanks for
else you
having
want to
me.
share before we close?
Check out my website to buy the book or any of my music. It's matthewcheckmusic.com. It's got plenty of videos, plenty of stuff about the book, which is going to be available whenever you're listening to this episode. Feel free to just message me on Instagram if you have any questions or you want to collaborate. Always love to talk to like-minded folks about writing, music, art, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. And thank you for listening, and be sure to check out the show notes for additional information, including all of Matt's links. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd greatly appreciate it if you shared the link with a friend. Thanks again.